A sword glints above his heart. She stands between the Alpha King and the Council, crystal shards embedded in her palm, blood pooling at her feet. "If you break your vow, we all burn," the old wolf snarls. She meets the king's eyes. He doesn't blink. 2 nights ago, she was still trapped in stone. Blood trickled from Seris's palm onto ancient stone. The sharp sting kept her awake as she knelt, hands bound, knees numbed by the damp floor. Crystal dust sparkled in the cuts, mixing with the slick warmth in her fist. Chains pressed tight, silver cold against her skin. The air reeked of burning wolf fur and crushed herbs. Proof that magic, or terror, had filled this crypt. Why was she here? And what had she done to deserve it? She gritted her teeth, refusing to let pain become shame. A solid step behind her silenced the guards. The Alpha King, all hard edges and black leather, approached. His amber-eyed gaze swept over her, measuring, weighing. The guards shrank back, but he did not hesitate.
Up. Now.
Her legs trembled as she stood, blood painting the shredded silk of her gown. She raised her chin, unbroken, though her hands shook. The king's gloves caught the torchlight, dark leather, threads of silver glinting at every seam. He reached for the prison's last crystal, his fingers curling tight. With a twist, the shard shattered, echoing like thunder through the crypt. Why risk his soul to free her? A guard, Garrick, fumbled with her chains. His fingers brushed her wrist and recoiled as if burned.
Curse or not, wolves will die for this.
Then keep your distance.
She smirked, daring him to reply. Instead, he snapped an iron collar around her throat. Its bite was cold, final, ownership disguised as mercy. Pain flared, but she locked eyes with the king and asked the question twisting in every heart.
Why would you break the unbreakable?
For a heartbeat, the king's stoic mask threatened to slip. His jaw clenched, the silver-threaded gloves flexed.
Because your curse is my last hope.
Footsteps clattered. Councillor Vere and his council filed into the crypt, faces pale in torch glow.
By the old laws, she stands accused. Murder, forbidden magic, pact breaking. She is a threat.
You're charging her for things she can't even remember.
No one listened. The king's grip on her chain didn't loosen.
You fear a memory more than the girl herself.
Councillor Vere spat at her feet. Judgment had already been passed. The king leaned in, voice low.
Survive this, then prove them wrong.
The chain jerked. Seris stumbled forward, forced to stand before the council, bleeding, accused, unbowed. Thunder boomed overhead as the council gave their verdict with their eyes alone. And as the king's silver-stitched gloves tightened on her leash, Seris wondered which would break first, the curse or her will. Torchlight flickered over the council chamber's stone walls, glinting on pelts bristling with old stains. Smoke from the hearth coiled through the air, sharp with burning wolf fur and the bitter tang of feverfew, catching in Seris's throat as she was dragged forward, chains scraping across flagstones. Alpha King Ronan stood at the head of the table, arms folded, gaze fixed on her. Behind him, councillors shifted uneasily, attention flicking from the dark stain drying on her gown to the iron rings clamped tight around her wrists. Councillor Vere pressed a cloth to his nose, wolf fang necklace swinging with each nervous movement.
Execution. It's the law. She's a risk. A monster, by every precedent.
A cough sputtered from Garrick, standing stiff at Seris's shoulder, hands clenched.
That law was for traitors, not for her.
You'd call this mercy, Garrick? The sickness is spreading already. Burn her body, break the curse. Do it now.
A hush. The harsh smell of charred fur thickened as the king's boots scraped forward.
No one dies by your decree tonight.
He said it quietly, but the power in the room shifted. For a moment, Seris could almost feel warmth in the king's shadow, but it twisted into fear when his eyes landed on her.
She belongs to the crown. Chains, stay. No council hand will touch her again.
Seris's arms ached. The metal seared her skin where it pressed, but she forced herself upright, eyes locked on the king.
Am I to live like this? Caged but breathing? Or will you use me? Let the chain drag blood from anyone you choose.
Ronan stared, face unreadable. The councillors muttered. A cough hacked through the chamber, Liss, half hidden near the hearth, lowering her sleeve. Seris caught the glint of sweat on her brow, the pink burn of fever. The king's jaw tightened.
I can help treat it.
Her offer hung heavy in the smoke. Garrick glanced at her, startled.
The illness. If you let me live, I'll try. But not for nothing. I want answers. My freedom. Eventually.
She bargains? With what magic, girl? You bring this rat.
He broke off as Seris's chains rattled, her outstretched hand brushing his sleeve. Vey recoiled, necklace bouncing. His voice dropped to a hiss meant for no one, or for the room to forget.
She's not supposed to survive.
For a sick beat, everyone heard. King Ronan's fist closed. Seris felt the threat bloom, not from the king, but from whatever truth Vea's words tried to bury. A hollow quiet. Beyond the chamber, wolves bayed in the distance, their hunger threading through stone. Reluctantly, the king nodded. The fire hissed, a new wave of burnt fur thickening the air.
You live, but you are leashed. Prove your worth. Break the sickness.
Chains jingled as Seris let her arms drop. Her muscles trembled with something like relief. The promise of time, not mercy. When the chamber emptied, only Ronan remained. He didn't come closer. He watched the smoke twist, voice pitched just above a whisper.
Understand this. The curse's cost is blood. For every day you walk free, another soul in my kingdom falls sick. Children, soldiers, my own kin.
The knowledge hit harder than his decree. Seris's throat burned, the taste of metal and ash thick on her tongue.
And if I refuse?
He didn't answer, not with words. King Ronan's quiet warning about the curse's true cost leaves us hanging. What will Seris do next? If you're curious about her choice, hit subscribe. Now let's continue. The door creaked open, a counselor's shadow flickering across the pelts. Seris caught the faintest scent of fever blooming under the bitter herbs. The chamber spun with questions she couldn't name. And outside, the wolves began to howl. Heavy smoke drifted beneath the vaulted ceiling, stinging Seris's eyes. Torchlight flickered across silver banners, and the faces of the court, hungry, expectant, afraid. The scent of burning wolf fur and crushed sage waited every breath, as if the air itself could bite. Chains scraped over the rough stone as Garrick guided her up the steps. The king stood waiting at the dais, hands bare, eyes fixed on her wrist. Seris's gown clung to her skin, sticky where blood had dried. The cold from the stone floor had crept into her bones, but she held herself upright.
The law must be honored. If the bond is refused,
The curse spreads. Through them, then through us.
Ronan's voice cut through the murmurs. He read from an iron-plated tablet, glyphs glinting in the firelight. Counselors flinched as his words filled the hall.
By decree of the ancient law, if the soul bond is broken, curse and death claim both, and the land suffers after.
The court recoiled, a sound like rattling crystal shards. Seris fought a wave of nausea, so it wasn't just her life. If she failed, the king would die, and after that, something worse. She met his gaze. His face was carved from stone, but his gloves were gone. The threat was not just words. Garrick hovered near, jaw clenched, the trace of old blood under his nails. A silver bowl was brought forward. Ronan's hands were steady as he dipped his thumb, lifted her arm. She tried to pull back, but the chains held fast. The court leaned in. The king pressed his thumb to her wrist. Searing cold lanced through her. Not heat, a cold so deep it numbed thought, biting deeper than any burn. The sigil bloomed, lines of blue-white fire etching flesh. Seris gasped despite herself. Her skin, once pale, was now marked by an unnatural frost. The court whispered. Vea's eyes darted, calculating.
truly, sire, shall we trust?
The king turned, his shadow stretching across the banners.
No one survives the law.
The words landed like a blow. Seris forced herself to breathe. The mark ached. Icily, relentlessly, she flexed her hand. The pain did not fade.
What does it mean exactly, besides death?
He studied her, unblinking.
It means you will obey. We are bound. Fail, and the curse will consume us both. There is no loophole.
A hush. Lies hovered at the edge of the crowd, green eyes wide.
But the law is older than any written here. Who enforced it first? Do you even know what it was meant to prevent?
Vere snorted, dismissive.
Magic is not for the likes of us to question.
Garrick's voice was rough as cracked stone.
If she dies, so does he. Some bargain.
A flicker. Ronan's jaw tightened. Just once. Seris lifted the marked wrist, the sigil burning with frozen light. The court stared, some with awe, others with dread. She refused to flinch.
If you want a servant, you should chain yourself, not me.
Ronan's lips twitched, almost a smile.
Chains are for the weak-willed. You are bound by something stronger.
A ripple of laughter, quickly smothered. Yet he stepped closer, voice lowering.
The law is clear. If you break the bond, you destroy us all.
The cold from the mark tingled up her arm, colder than fear. She wondered if anyone had ever tried to break it, and if the law was truly unbreakable, or just a threat repeated by frightened men. A wolf howled somewhere beyond the hall. Someone dropped a silver cup. The clang echoed through the smoke. Seris's fingers curled around the sigil. She made herself stand tall, though every instinct screamed to hide. The king watched her, unreadable. In his eyes, an old calculation. Had he chosen her, or was he as much a captive as she? The pain sharpened. One more reminder, she was no longer just a prisoner. Now she carried the kingdom's fate, burning cold beneath her skin. And as the court began to chant, she realized the mark was not just a threat, it was a promise. And promises here were dangerous things. The wind howled through the tower's broken window, rattling the battered wooden chest beneath Seris's cot. Each gust drove torchlight across the stone floor, flickering over rough wool blankets and Garrick's boots by the door. Seris pressed her palm to the cold sill. The moonlit gardens stretched far below, silent and dark. But what lurked in the shadows? She didn't know. Her gaze drifted, uneasy. The air stank of crushed feverfew. Yet something sharper lingered, the metallic tang that clung to her every time she bled. She flexed her fingers. No new blackened veins today, but her skin burned where the sigil still marked her wrist. Garrick cleared his throat, voice as dry as the kindling he hoarded.
If you're planning to haunt the halls tonight, I'm warning you. I bite.
She looked over her shoulder. He was scowling, arms folded, but his eyes flicked to the cot where the chest sat.
I'd rather not give you indigestion.
Garrick grunted, a hint of amusement in the noise. The chest beneath her cot rattled once as she sat. She froze. He didn't flinch.
Ignore it. The tower's old. Everything rattles up here, even me.
A tension she'd been holding loosened fractionally. She tucked it away. Garrick's humour was a sliver of warmth in this stone cage, but it came and went like stray sunlight. The cry of a wolf pup echoed up the stairwell. Garrick's expression tightened.
Don't even think about it.
Seris ignored him. She crossed to the door. Garrick blocked it, but a smaller form nudged around his legs. A palace wolf pup, its fur patchy and eyes rimmed red with fever. Her breath caught. Instinct overrode caution. She knelt, reaching to soothe the trembling creature. Its fur was soft beneath her palm, hot with fever. She tried to summon the old healing, let her power flow, but the curse twisted in her veins. Pain lanced up her arm. A smell like scorched metal filled the air. Black blood welled from her cuticle, oozing onto the pup's fur. The animal yelped, scrabbling away, a patch of fur at her touch now singed to the skin, the burning stink of wolf hair mixing with that bloody, poisonous tang. Garrick swore and pulled the pup close, checking its wound. Seris stared at her palm. Veins black as pitch crawled beneath the skin, the blood eating at her like acid.
That's enough. Don't touch them again. Not if you want them to live.
She pulled her hand back, shame and horror warring in her chest.
I thought I could help.
Well, you can't. Maybe you never could. Maybe that's not what you're for.
He left, carrying the whimpering pup, but not before glancing at the chest. The rattling had stopped. Only the howling wind and the harsh stink of burned fur lingered. Seris sat on the cot, sweat cooling on her skin. She pressed her wrist to her chest, heartbeat juddering against the cursed sigil. She was a danger, even to the innocent. A shadow passed the sliver of light under the door. She tensed. Heavy footsteps, then a careful pause. She recognized the sound. The king. Alpha King Ronan did not enter. He lingered, jaw tight, gloved hand resting on the doorframe. For a long moment he stared at the stone, refusing to meet her eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely more than a command delivered to the wall.
You are not to attempt healing. That is an order.
He turned away before she could reply. The metallic stink of her blood filled the air, sharper than before. She glanced at the battered chest. Its lock gleamed faintly as the wind rattled it once more. What was locked beneath her bed, and who, besides her, feared what it might unleash? The moon hung swollen and cold over the palace gardens, drawing silver from every trembling leaf, distant howls pressed against the hedges, so thin they could have been the wind, or the wolves they kept away from the healthy. Seris stepped onto the flagstone path, her bare feet barely making a sound, the ground pressed back, roses and feverfew wilting in her wake, as if the curse inside her soured the very earth. She lifted her hand to brush back her hair, and the motion caught her breath. In the moonlight, beneath her pale skin, something shimmered, delicate threads of crystal tracing up her wrist, winding toward her elbow, cold as river ice. Alpha King Ronan walked 2 steps ahead, a shadow of command, as always. Yet tonight, his stride seemed measured, almost hesitant, the smell of wilting garden roses mixed with something metallic and strange, catching in Seris's throat. He stopped at a marble bench etched with old sigils. On the far side of the garden, 2 wolves huddled together, their breaths ragged. Another, small, trembling, watched Seris with fever-bright eyes. Ronan's gloved hand hovered, then he removed a silver ring from his finger. He palmed it quietly, slipping it into his belt. Only then did he pluck an undamaged rose from a bush, one of the last that still dared to bloom beside her. He held it out, not looking directly at her.
Take it. I need to show you something.
She reached, careful not to let her fingertips brush his. The rose felt heavy, petals already curling at the edges.
Why bring me here? You could have sent anyone.
His jaw tightened. Moonlight picked out the line of his throat, unguarded for a moment.
They're dying faster. I cannot stop it. But the curse, your curse, spreads differently in moonlight. Look.
He gestured to her arm. The crystal veins, faint before, now caught the moon in a starburst web. They pulsed, slow, relentless, edging higher, driven by some silent clock.
It wasn't so far before. Has it reached your heart?
Seris shook her head. The movement made pain flicker through her shoulder. Her instinct screamed to hide her fear, but the garden was open, the night too thin for pretense.
Not yet, but it hurts more. Each day, each touch.
A wolf coughed, a wet, rattling sound. Seris's stomach twisted. The urge to turn away warred with something else. The old, impossible need to help. Ronan watched her, eyes unreadable.
You said you could heal, help him. Just this one.
She glanced at the sickest wolf. Its fur was patchy, eyes rimmed red, body racked by tremors. Seris shifted closer, kneeling so her shadow fell across its side. The rose in her hand wilted instantly, petals crumbling away. She pressed her palm to the wolf's fevered coat. The world narrowed, slick skin, foul breath, the violent cold of magic seeping out of her. Pain slammed through her arm, sharp, ringing, like crystal splintering. The veins beneath her skin flared, shining with icy brilliance. For a moment she saw nothing but blue fire, her own scream lost in her chest. Ronan's hand closed around her wrist, steadying her. His palm was bare, skin to skin. The shock of contact jolted her senses. It was only a heartbeat, but she felt the weight of his grip, the heat where his ring had been.
Enough.
She gasped, snatching her hand away. The wolf's breathing eased, just a little. Its eyes flickered open, cloudy, but seeing. Seris staggered upright. Her knees shook. The crystal veins had crept higher, just below the line of her collarbone, shimmering cold and bright. A pause hung between them, filled with the scent of crushed sage and the distant rattle of crystal shards. Ronan watched her, something raw in his gaze, then turned away too quickly.
If the veins reach my heart, what happens?
He did not answer. Instead, he slid the silver ring back onto his finger. A single howl split the night, closer now, urgent, the garden's silence fractured. Seris looked down at her arm. The veins caught the moonlight, glittering, beautiful, and utterly unforgiving. Rust flaked from the door as Seris eased it open. Dawn's faint gold sliced through cracked glass. She was sold at dawn, for the price of 3 goats. The air stung with smoke from torches and the faint metallic tang of something fouler, Sick wolves had come this way. She was sure of it. She followed a spotted trail, a sick wolf's bloody paw prints, thin and trembling, past the stacked spears. The chill of metal vials hidden up her sleeve pressed against her skin, clinking with each step. Her heart hammered. She pushed aside a pitted shield. Beyond it, a battered water barrel, rim stained with a greenish crust. A soft rattle, liquid poured into metal. Seris crouched low, breath tight. The grit of old stone scraped her knees. Through a gap in the crates, she saw the counsellor, there, robes blending with the gloom, his hand steady as he tipped a vial into the water.
One more night.
He muttered, voice clicked.
Blame the curse, and no one will ask where the fever started.
The wolves curled at his feet, whimpered, eyes fever bright. Seris's fingers tightened around the slim glass in her sleeve. The cold, a cruel comfort. She didn't know what he was doing, but it was wrong. Footsteps rang in the corridor outside. She had seconds. Seris scanned the mess of alchemy tools on the crate. A leather pouch, unlabeled vials. She snatched the nearest. Liquid inside shimmered sickly violet. She jammed it up her sleeve beside the others, the metal now icy, a warning not to hesitate. Vare wiped the barrel, gaze darting. Seris shrank further into the hollow behind the armor stand, only breathing when he turned away. Her mind spun. The council was poisoning their own, feeding the curse. Why? As if answering, Garrick's voice rang out in the hall. Loud, indignant.
Oi, there's a mouse in the guard room. Fat as a kitten, too.
The guards cursed, boots drumming away. Vare froze, scowl flickering. He tucked the last vial into his pocket, hurried for the door. And as he passed, his hand brushed the stone. Seris glimpsed a mark scratched deep, a circle pierced by a jagged line. It matched the faded scar on her wrist. She barely suppressed a hiss. The council's secrets ran deeper than poison. Vare left. She forced herself to wait, counting each beat, the vials cold tapping her wrist, until Garrick poked his head through a collapsed patch of wall.
If you ever get eaten by a mouse, I'll say I warned you.
Her laugh nearly echoed, too loud in the dusty armory. She pressed her palm to her lips, stifling it. Garrick offered his hand in a gesture both practical and absurdly gentle. She took it, their touch brief, functional, but neither pulled away as fast as they should have. The cold vials between their palms sent a jolt through both.
You made that up? About the mouse.
You think any mouse in this place is fat? If you see one, catch it. I'm starving.
She steadied herself. The vial's weight reminded her why she was here. The barrel's water shimmered with tainted magic. Her hand wouldn't stop shaking. But now she had proof. Her gaze flicked to the scratched symbol, the same as her old scar. Her grip tightened. Footsteps pounded back down the passage. Guards returning, Vare's voice sharp. She pressed the vial deeper into her sleeve. Garrick nudged her toward the nearest window. He whispered,
Go. I'll cover you. If they ask, I'll say I was hunting a beast.
A rush of morning wind stung her face as she clambered out, metal vials clinking, a promise and a burden. Behind her, the wolves whimpered. Ahead, the symbol burned in her mind. How many on the council wanted this curse to spread? And why did her own skin bear their hidden mark? Dawn mist blanketed the palace courtyard, swirling pale against Seris's bare arms. The torches were long ago snuffed, leaving only the grey promise of morning and the sting of frost creeping through every seam in her torn gown. The crowd pressed in, guards bristling with unease, courtiers clutching at collars, the scent of wilting roses, and old smoke lingering where the night's tension had not burned away. She stood before them all, the king at her side. In her hand, the glass vial trembled, not with magic, but with the weight of what it would reveal. Ronan's jaw was set, his breath fogged in the chill, and she caught how his bare knuckles whitened as icy air gnawed at his skin. He positioned himself a step in front of her, blocking the worst of the cold, and the crowd's gaze. Councillor Vare's hooded eyes darted, his wolf-fang necklace glinting as he tried to blend into the robed line of his peers. Garrick watched from the edge, arms crossed tight, unreadable. Seris looked at Ronan. He nodded. Now. She stepped forward, voice soft but unyielding.
The king entrusted me with this, the vial you tried to hide, poisoned not by curse, but by a counselor's hand.
Muted shock rippled through the crowd. Someone hissed. Ver flinched, his breath catching sharp as crushed sage.
That's a lie. The girl's tainted. Her word is nothing.
King Ronan's voice was calm, but each word was carved from stone.
Step forward, Ver. We all saw you near the water supply before dawn. Explain yourself.
The frost stung deeper as silence stretched. Ver hesitated, cloak twitching. Then, too quick, his hand flicked from beneath the grey folds, a flash of metal arcing towards Seris. Ronan moved instantly. The cold bit his palm as he caught her shoulder, pulling her behind him. A blade grazed his arm, slicing the leather and drawing a thin line of blood that welled bright against the morning mist. Seris's breath tangled. The world shrank to Ronan's hand. On her, the heat of his body shielding her from wind and weapon both. Garrick surged forward, wrenching Vey's wrist behind his back. The dagger clattered to stone. Vey spat, face contorting with fear.
That's enough of your tricks. I'm done cleaning up after snakes.
Ver's eyes darted, calculating. There was no remorse, only animal panic. The king's voice trembled, the first crack in his armor Seris had ever seen.
Arrest him. He faces trial for treason and attempted murder.
The guards closed in, chains ringing harsh in the cold as they bound Ver's hands. He bared his teeth.
You think you've won, but you don't know what slumbers beneath your own feet. Ask her how the curse was broken. Ask what she gave up.
Ronan's grip lingered on Seris's shoulder. He didn't let go until Ver was dragged away, leaving only the hush of dawn mist and a spreading stain of blood on the stones. A rare warmth flickered between them, Ronan's eyes meeting hers, searching. For gratitude, for blame, she couldn't tell. The sting of frost faded where his hand had touched her. But as the crowd began to murmur and scatter, Seris's mind caught on Vea's words. How had he known how to poison the curse? What price had been paid, and by whom? And why, for the first time, had the king risked his own flesh for someone marked as doomed? She barely felt Garrick's hand steadying her as the courtyard emptied, dawn gathering in uncertain gold on broken glass. The questions wouldn't fade. They sharpened, razor bright in the morning cold. The sun-warmed stone beneath Seris's bare legs leached the last of the morning's heat. Wilting garden roses pressed their perfume through the open window, edged with a bitterness she remembered from old wounds. Beyond the glass, the palace fields burned yellow. No wolf song reached her, only the faint, uneven rattle of crystal shards, shifting somewhere out of sight. Ronan stood a half-step too close, his vest discarded, the lines of command carved sharp in his jaw. He kept his gaze on the dying roses. His hair, wavy, raven black, hung wild and tangled, strands catching on the battered silver thread that laced his collar. He spoke without turning.
Power costs more than blood. My father said numbness was the only shield against this kingdom devouring itself.
A ragged silence. The king's hands balled on the windowsill, knuckles white. Something in Seris shivered, but she forced stillness.
Does it work? The numbness?
His shoulders moved, a breath, uneven. She reached, almost without thinking, drawn by the exhaustion in his posture. Her fingers brushed his hair from his face, untangling knots. It was rough, catching, almost biting against her skin. He let her, eyes dropping shut for a heartbeat.
It's the only thing that has ever kept them safe.
He flinched at her touch, then stayed. The moment stretched, fragile as ice. Seris caught her own reflection in the glass, her blood-streaked gown, the silver-blue eyes rimmed red. The world outside was dying. Still, her hand lingered in his hair, feeling the prickle of tangles, the heat of his skin underneath.
You're not numb now.
He opened his eyes, amber, stormlit, searching her mouth, then her gaze. She felt herself drawn closer, caught in a gravity she didn't trust. His hand lifted, hesitated, then settled over hers, roughened palm warm against her trembling knuckles. The world pressed in, smell of wilting roses and something metallic, a warning. His words were nearly a growl.
If you break your vow, we all burn.
The words hung between them, meaning sharp as the edge of a blade. Her mouth parted. No answer came. Only longing, raw and breathless. Footsteps thundered down stone. Garrick burst through the door, sweat on his brow, linen shirt torn. His voice cracked the moment's shell.
Seris, your skin. Gods, crystals. There, look at your hands.
Seris jerked back. Pain lanced her palms, jagged crystal edges pale and bloody, pushing through like winter roots. The king gripped her tighter, refusing to release her. Garrick's words tumbled over each other.
It's not just you. The fields, everything's dying. Feverfew, barley, even the forest edge. This is the final phase.
The king's voice was low, nearly lost in the wind.
There may still be a way.
Seris looked down, crystals growing, blood spreading with each pulse. The king did not pull away. His hand stayed, covering hers, anchoring her to the failing light. The world narrowed to the press of his skin, the shards in hers, and Garrick's ragged breathing. She did not dare hope. Not yet. But for the first time, the numbness between them cracked, and something else, bright and desperate, flickered through the pain. A sound outside, a new rattle, harsher, coming closer. The king's grip tightened. The dying roses bowed in the sun, and the next question burned in the air. Was there a way to survive this, without killing them both? Sunlight pressed through stained glass, painting bruised colours across the jars and herbs. But Seris wondered, why did the air taste of regret? Garrick leaned on the cluttered work table, his arms folded, jaw tight. Liz beside him, trembling as she measured powder. Silver thread winked through her braid, the same as the embroidery on the king's discarded gloves. No one spoke, only the distant howl of wolves, muffled behind stone and glass. Seris pressed her thumb harder into the feverfew until her fingers tingled.
You called me here. What's wrong?
Lys's voice barely rose above the rattling jars.
We found something in the old records. No, forgive me. It's not good.
Garrick shot her a sideways look, lips twisting.
Not good means try it anyway, right? That's how these things go.
Seris almost smiled, but her tongue was dry, the taste of sage thick on her teeth. Is it a cure? Lys shook her head, a flush climbing her neck.
It's a severance rite, ancient, forbidden even for the king. If the bond is broken, one is freed, but the other dies. And the one who's freed...
She swallowed, twisting her silvered braid nervously.
They lose all memory of the bond, of the person they loved.
Garrick rubbed his temple.
Hell of a choice. Freedom, but you forget why you wanted it.
A dry laugh almost escaped Seris, strangled by the weight in her chest. The air tingled with crushed feverfew and something bitterer. Regret. Or fear. She couldn't say. Lys set down the vial, hands trembling.
The king gave the order. If you ask, we're to perform it. No one else can know, not the council, not the others.
Blood thudded in Seris's ears, drowning out the distant wolves. He told you, she said, voice barely above a whisper. He wants me to forget him? Garrick's eyes softened for a blink.
He wants you to choose, for all of us.
Seris stared at her fingers, stained yellow by torn feverfew leaves. She tried to picture a world where Ronan died and she lived, free, blank, unburdened. The silence that image left behind was vast, echoing. Lys's voice cut through it, gentle as ever.
We won't force you, but if you do, Seris, the curse will end. The kingdom might heal, but you'll lose him. Every memory, even the pain.
Garrick's mouth twitched.
Worst part is, you'll have to hear all my jokes fresh. That's a fate worse than any curse.
Seris almost laughed, almost. The ache in her throat was real, bitter as sage on her tongue. When, she managed. Lys glanced down. Silver glinted in her braid, catching a sunbeam.
Whenever you say, we have everything we need, almost everything.
Seris's hand curled around a feverfew sprig, crumpling it to dust. She forced herself to meet Lys's eyes. Show me the ritual. I want to see every step. Lys hesitated, then nodded, sliding a brittle parchment across the table. The ink was faded, the language cruel and old. Outside, the wolves howled again, hungrier this time. Seris stared at the instructions, hands shaking. The words blurred, rearranged themselves into a choice. Memory, love, a kingdom's survival. She could choose, and the world would change, or refuse and let everything burn. The cost, her own heart, or his life. She closed her eyes, the bitter tang of feverfew thick in her mouth, and tried to remember the sound of his voice. But the only thing she heard was her own asking, would you die for a kingdom that wanted you erased? Or worse, forget the only love you ever had? Her answer, whatever it would be, stayed unspoken as a key turned in the lock. Thunder rattled the council chamber windows, each strike sharper than the last. The torches flickered in sudden gusts, making shadows crawl along the stone. Seris's hair lifted on her arms. The air was so charged she could taste iron and scorched sage. Somewhere, the scent of wilting garden roses fought to survive beneath the bite of smoke. Heavy iron chains circled her wrists, rough against her skin. She stood in the same ring of cold silver sigils, where it all began. But this time, Ronan stood beside her, bare-handed, his palm scored with the same sigil as hers, bleeding raw where the gloves used to hide it. Another bolt lit the room, painting the councillors' faces in harsh, unnatural light. The runes at Seris's feet pulsed cold-hot, a warning she felt in her teeth. Councillor Vare's voice cut through the roar of wind. He stared mostly at the floor, as if afraid the storm might reach through the glass.
The curse needs an ending before dawn. The right, someone pays. Her blood or yours, Majesty. That's the law.
Rain lashed the chamber window, letting in the earthy, bitter tang of crushed feverfew. The other councillors pressed back from the circle, silent, shivering. Seris's mark throbbed. She looked at Ronan, his jaw set hard, but his hand shook as he steadied her chain. The council's mutters faded, replaced by a low keening from the wind in the tower above.
Enough. Do it, Vare. The storm doesn't wait.
His command was more plea than order. The old roles had shifted. Seris could feel it in his hesitation, the way he crowded closer, as if afraid she'd vanish. Vare risked a glance at her, then at the king.
You know what's required. No council can shield you now, girl. It's you or him.
Seris's skin prickled with pain where the sigil burned, every heartbeat a jolt. She remembered standing here once, utterly alone. Now Ronan's bare hand hovered near, breath quick and shallow.
It never really was a choice, was it? Not for me. Not for you. Either.
Her words were quiet, brittle as glass. Someone choked back a sob in the gallery. Garrick's voice broke through, rough and dry, absurdly normal.
Strange how the law always finds a way to miss its own. Bet my year's wages Vare's never stood in a circle like this.
Several muffled snorts darted around the room. Even Ronan's lips twitched, almost a smile, almost grief. For a moment, the storm seemed far off, and the room filled with a shaky warmth. Then, the glass shivered again. A window banged open. The cold air rolled in with a scent of crushed leaves and rot. Seris's chains went icy against her wrists. She turned to Ronan. Her voice was raw.
Why did you really break my cell, Ronan? Wasn't for their sake.
The silence that followed was thick with a taste of anticipation, bitter and electric. Ronan's eyes shut briefly. His breath stuttered.
I didn't come back for the crown.
He swallowed, voice rough with old wounds.
When I was a child, I was dying. No one dared touch a cursed prince. You healed me, Seris. I owe you my life. I broke your cell because I couldn't be numb. I couldn't watch you suffer. Not again.
A hush passed through the council, like a spell breaking. The air vibrated. Seris's memory flashed. Ronan, thin and fever-wild, cradled in her lap centuries ago. The electric tang now mingled with something almost sweet, an old memory of rosewater, fleeting. She reached for Ronan's hand, anchoring herself to the present, to him. Their marks pressed together. Pain shot up her arm, pure and blinding, but she gripped tighter.
Stand with me, not above.
Ronan pressed his forehead gently to hers. For a heartbeat, everything was just warmth and the sound of their joint breathing. The world outside held at bay.
Let it take me, please. Not her.
Desperation bled through his calm, but Seris shook her head, the chains rattling like bones.
No, this curse began in me. I'll pay the price.
The cost flickered through her. Not just pain, not just her life, but every memory of Ronan. The moment she'd forget his eyes, his voice, the way her name sounded when he said it. She would walk away empty, free, but hollow. That was the price. Ver shifted, impatience souring his words.
She chooses. The ritual begins. May the storm spare what matters.
A trembling pause. Then the runes erupted in a wash of cold light, crawling up her legs, searing her sense of self away. Pain swelled, heavy as the thunder outside. She nearly cried out, but instead she squeezed Ronan's hand, grounding herself in the last thing she'd ever remember. He bent, pressed his lips, quick, searing, against her torn palm. For a single breath, everything was wonder. As the power surged and the wind shrieked, Seris heard Garrick murmur somewhere behind her, oddly gentle.
Give them hell, girl, if anyone can.
She managed a broken smile. Relief, fear, something like gratitude flickering through her. For just a second, the pain faded under the fierce, wry hope in Garrick's voice. But the scent of crushed feverfew swept in again, sharp and insistent, and the light in the chamber turned jagged. Her vision blurred. Runes burned brighter, a web of silver crawling up her arm. She tried to memorize Ronan's face, the trembling set of his jaw, the haunted gold of his eyes. The sigil blazed. Her own voice sounded distant as she held on to the last thread that was hers.
Ronan, remember me.
A crack split the stone beneath her feet. Pain, white, infinite, ripped through her, and her world exploded in a flash of silver and rain. Her last memory was Ronan's hand in hers, his mark burning alongside her own, as the ritual consumed everything she was. Then, nothing, except the howling wind, the cold, and the echo of a name she would never recall. Morning sun slipped through the fractured stained glass, painting jagged shards of colour across the crypt's stone floor. A metallic tang hung in the air. Fresh blood mingled with the scent of crushed sage and feverfew. The storm had passed. Only the distant drip of water and the faint rattling of broken crystals remained. Seris lay on her side, no longer chained. Her gown was torn, blue silk stiff with blood, her skin latticed with old sigil burns and new scars, evidence of the ritual's price. Her hair, matted with sweat and ash, fanned across the steps. The weight in her chest was gone. Something warm nudged her palm. Soft fur tickled her skin. A wolf pup, no bigger than her forearms, pressed its nose into her hand, licking her fingers. Its wiry tail thumped hesitantly against broken crystal shards. She tried to remember the pup's name, or even her own. A yawning blankness met her. Faces and places eluded her grasp, like smoke through fingers. Why am I here? Who am I? She didn't know. A shadow fell across the dawn-lit stones. Ronan knelt beside her, broad shoulders hunched, the commanding set of his jaw marred by exhaustion. His right hand hovered uncertainly above hers. The silver-threaded gloves he always wore, symbols of royal authority, secrets, and protection, lay at her side, the fabric blackened and unraveling, their purpose burned away by the ritual's fire. He cleared his throat. When he spoke, his voice was sanded raw, stripped of all ceremony.
Seris, please, say something, anything.
His real name, his face, the thunder in his voice, none of it sparked recognition. But there was a pull in her chest, a sensation half like longing and half like mourning, for something she'd once known. The wolf pup nestled closer, pressing its soft warmth against her wrist. It licked away the blood at her pulse point without fear. The sensation grounded her in this new, uncertain world.
They said you'd forget, that the right would take everything. Did it? Did I lose you?
She studied him, his eyes rimmed red, his breathing unsteady for the first time since she'd woken. In another life, she sensed he would never have knelt to anyone.
I don't know you.
The words tasted foreign on her tongue. He closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face.
Then I'll start again. I was the one who broke the law to save you.
His hand, stripped of the silver thread that once shielded him from her curse, finally settled over hers. His fingers trembled.
If you remember nothing else, remember this. Your choice ended the curse. This kingdom stands because you gave up everything.
She tried to reach for the memory of why she'd chosen sacrifice. Only an ache remained. But in his voice, and in the gentle pressure of the pup's fur against her skin, she felt a hope that ran deeper than blood, Clarity came in sudden fragments, her chains, the storm, a promise broken, a promise remade. She saw herself kneeling in this same crypt, defiant yet terrified. Now, he knelt to her.
Did I love you?
For a moment, his composure cracked. He pressed her fingers to his lips. Not a king's gesture, but a man's.
You chose me, even when you shouldn't have.
She let the comfort of the wolf pup's fur anchor her. The ritual had burned away her past, but she was free to choose her future. Steel boots clattered at the far end of the crypt. Garrick's voice echoed through the cold chamber.
She awake? Dawn's wasting. Got half the council snivelling up there, and Liz is making vows to every god she can name.
The king didn't move. He waited for her answer. She met his gaze, searching for the promise beneath the scars. She nodded, slow, uncertain, but hers alone. Outside, light glinted off shattered crystals and streaks of blood. The wolf pup's tail beat faster as she rose, wobbly but stronger than she'd felt in days. Her bare feet brushed over rough wall, over the remains of his gloves, a detail that lingered, unspoken. At the crypt's threshold, she found a folded letter, pressed with an unfamiliar black seal. The mark, a wolf entwined with an ancient sigil, pulsed with dark magic, whispering of old enemies and unfinished business. Seris tucked the letter into her palm, pulse quickening with possibility. Hope, fragile as morning sun through broken glass, flared in her chest. The curse was broken. Choice was hers now. But as she stepped out into the dawn mist, the seal seemed to burn colder. Some promises, she realized, are never truly broken. They only change shape. Elowen's memory may be gone, but her sacrifice lingers. Would you have traded your past for a stranger's hope? If this story's ending left a mark, a like or comment helps it find others searching for hope in the dark. Until next time, may your dawn always outlive your storm.